The prevailing narrative fixates on kinetic hardware, missile silos, carrier groups. This is a calculated distraction. The financial and political cost of a launch-on-warning scenario is a liability for any solvent nation. The mathematical blueprint for modern conflict has inverted. The real threat is not a bang, but systemic silence. CSIS reports confirm that 99% of global financial and communications data travels through a few dozen undersea cables. These are the arteries of systemic trust. For an adversary facing a solvency crisis where conventional options are degraded, source number 2, the asymmetric leverage is irrefutable. The kinetic cost is low. The potential return is the liquidation of global liquidity. The second vector is orbital. The objective is not destruction, which is attributable and messy, but blinding. Targeted laser or microwave pulses to temporarily or permanently disable an adversary's sensing grid. The result is a strategic paralysis that turns a superpower into a blind leviathan. A blind leviathan is a state with immense kinetic power but zero situational awareness. Its military cannot validate threats. Its markets cannot clear transactions. It defaults to worst-case protocols, unable to distinguish a cyber vector, source number 1, from a physical attack. This is the accelerant, weaponized silence, engineered to trigger a systemic collapse from within. The motive is not conquest, it is solvency. When a nation-state faces terminal economic decline, conventional war becomes an untenable liability. According to analysts at CSIS, an unpopular high-cost kinetic conflict becomes a domestic liability that accelerates internal collapse. Data from Fortune confirms this blueprint in action, with the war in Ukraine stifling the Russian economy to the point of forcing companies to 4-day work weeks, source number 2. This is the solvency crisis point. At this threshold, the mathematical incentive pivots from expensive kinetic operations to low-cost, high-leverage asymmetric attacks. The cost of deploying a tank battalion is weighed against the cost of a cyber campaign, source number 1, or a disruptive tariff strategy, source number 3. Weakness forces this hand. The state defaults to a launch-on-warning protocol, not for nuclear weapons, but for systemic attacks on global trust and liquidity. Economic failure has become the accelerant. The new blueprint for conflict is an economic equation. According to analysts at the Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, the kinetic cost has been inverted. A main battle tank is a $5 million asset. The first-person view drone that can execute a mission kill on that tank costs $500. This is not a balanced fight. It is a 10,000 to 1 leverage ratio against legacy hardware. This collapse in the cost of lethality is a protocol known as the democratization of violence. The financial and industrial barriers to entry for projecting force have been systematically obliterated. It no longer requires a state-level industrial base to field a significant kinetic threat. It requires a workshop and a shipping address. The ability to liquidate multi-million-dollar assets is now available at consumer prices. For a state actor whose economy is being systematically stifled, source number 2, this isn't an option. It is a mathematical certainty. When conventional solvency is degraded, the system defaults to asymmetric escalation. Why build a billion-dollar fighter jet when a swarm of disposable drones can achieve denial of territory? Economic failure has become the primary accelerant for a new launch-on-warning protocol, not for nuclear weapons, but for systemic low-cost warfare. The primary theater of conflict is no longer a geographic location. It is a condition of state failure. We call these environments gray zones, regions where national authority has degraded to the point they become proxy laboratories for asymmetric warfare. A state facing a solvency crisis, like Russia's economy being stifled into 4-day work weeks, source number 2, does not have the kinetic options it once did. The mathematical incentive shifts. When conventional war becomes an economic liability, the state is forced to launch on warning using non-kinetic vectors. These gray zones provide the ideal staging ground. They offer plausible deniability for launching cyber attacks against critical infrastructure, source number 1, or executing information warfare campaigns, such as targeted travel warnings, source number 4, designed to cripple a competitor's economic liquidity. The tariff escalations seen between major powers, source number 3, provide the strategic blueprint for this weaponized finance. Analysts at RUSI confirm this model. Regional instability, whether in southern Africa or observed as friction within Canada, is not the root cause of systemic risk. It is a symptom. More critically, it is the petri dish where these asymmetric attack protocols are tested and refined before being deployed against the core architecture of global trust. The final liability in a solvency crisis is not economic, it is kinetic. According to CSIS analysis, the bedrock of nuclear defense is the launch-on warning protocol. This is not a choice, it is a mathematical function. If early warning systems detect an inbound strategic launch, retaliation is executed before the incoming assets strike. The logic is brutal. To wait for confirmation is to risk having your entire arsenal liquidated in its silos, forfeiting all leverage. However, this protocol was designed for a symmetric world. The new blueprint for conflict is asymmetric. As an adversary's economy is degraded, source number 2, their incentive to engage in high-cost conventional warfare approaches zero. They are mathematically forced to pivot to cheaper vectors, such as cyber attacks, source number 1, to alter the strategic balance. This creates the fog of digital war. A cyber attack does not need to destroy a missile, it only needs to blind the radar. When the screens go black, the commander faces a zero-sum calculation. Is the signal loss a system error? Or is it the first shot in a decapitation strike that has already destroyed the sensors? The kinetic cost of hesitation is total annihilation. The protocol's rigidity forces the commander's hand. In the absence of data, the doctrine defaults to the worst-case scenario. Fear of being disarmed by an unseen attack forces a launch. An adversary's economic weakness, leveraged through an inexpensive cyber vector, becomes the accelerant for a full-scale systemic exchange. A nation facing a terminal solvency crisis operates on an economic launch-on warning protocol. As conventional options are degraded and liquidity evaporates, source number 2, the mathematical certainty of collapse incentivizes a preemptive, asymmetric strike. The objective is not to defeat an army, it is to fracture the systemic trust that underpins the adversary's financial architecture. The kinetic cost of inaction becomes infinite. This is not a theoretical model. According to RUSI, the blueprint for this escalation vector is pre-calculated. The primary weapon is not a missile, but a malicious code packet deployed with plausible deniability, source number 1. The initial salvo is never the main assault. It is a calibration shot, an event designed to test response times, sow informational chaos, and measure the political will for retaliation. Within the next 12 months, anticipate an attribution impossible event targeting a Tier 1 data clearinghouse or major automated port facility. It will manifest as a 24 to 72-hour unexplained outage, halting a critical percentage of financial transactions or container traffic. The event will be officially attributed to a software glitch or a sophisticated ransomware group. It will not be an act of war. It will be a receipt.